Wow, what a great series of films. Let me start actually with Barrett and Ali, and you can sort of decide. You can answer the question whatever order you want. Like one of the most memorable lines, actually, I think in the film is "Fear stops you. It leads to so many negative things," which seems like a motto to live by. How do you apply that to your filmmaking?
That's a great question. Well, I want to point out that the person who actually said those words is here tonight, Heather. So if you have questions about her perspective on that, I encourage you to talk to her. She's incredible. I think one of the things, when you think about making films, you can often let your decisions be swayed by what you think people might think of the film. And one of the things that I try to do when I'm making any story is to ask myself, does this story scare me? And if so, that means it's probably a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were so pleased, actually, that one of the finalists was shot here and around Seattle. Can you talk a little bit about what you learned about the local film community making the film?
Can you repeat the question a little bit?
What was it like shooting here, and what did you learn anything about the local film community? And just tell us a little bit about the scene here.
Ali is very involved in the local film community.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, we both live in Seattle, and I'm on the board of CDOC, which is the Seattle Documentary Association. Woohoo! There's several of us here. I would say that my experience since living here and making projects and producing here has been that Seattle has always been very encouraging and nurturing to their independent filmmaking community, especially the doc filmmaking. So it's just been a really good experience.
Yeah, great. Sarah, let me turn to you. I think one of the really sort of vivid images of this of your documentary is the violin playing scientists out in the Alps. That sort of really sticks with you after you've seen the film. How did you find him? How did you come across this story?
Well, I was on assignment in Himalaya. I've been working for National Geographic magazine for 12 years, and I was working on a story about these artificial glaciers called the ice stupas in Ladakh. And one day we are about to go to this remote village, and all of a sudden this Swiss guy enters our car. And later I found out he's a scientist from Switzerland on this special exchange program with this university in Ladakh, and we kept in touch for 2 years until I pitched his story and the story of the Alps, the problem of the Alps and the winter, the future, to the magazine. So I actually finally went to Switzerland to visit him on assignment for the magazine, and the film was kind of just like a natural. I just felt that I need more than just a set of pictures for the magazine. So it was my very first short documentary film, and yeah, that's how we still stay in touch. I'm gonna visit him next week with my family.
Oh, great! I mean, I was actually going to ask: do you have any? Can you update us on how successful?
I actually sent out a message to him 2 days ago. I was certain you're going to ask this.
You knew you were going to be asked this question.
So they are developing a new kind of snow cable rope system. They're about to test it later this year. They're getting some more funding. It's still ongoing. His dream still lives on, and it's Switzerland, so there's plenty of money to spend for innovation. But he was really able to connect some pretty incredible institutions like ETH, Lucerne University of Applied Arts and Sciences, some really huge private companies. So I'm still planning to follow this story while I also work on similar projects on different kind of mountain ranges, kind of with the same solution-based approach, storytelling.
Great, thank you. And David, as filmmakers, as journalists, the challenge for all of us when we're telling stories is, finding characters, vehicles to tell stories, and the bat carers. It's such a quirky. They're very quirky sort of story to tell, quirky individuals. How did you find them?
They're so cute, aren't they? The bats, not the carers. So I found that story because next to where I was living was a national park, and there were a colony of bats that would dip in the water there. And as a photographer as well, I was on one side of the lake photographing them dipping in the water, and there was a person that decided to stand right in my shot and stitch me up. So I walked around the lake and ended up having a chat to him, and this guy was one of the bat volunteer counters that go around and count the number of bats in the colony. And through discussion, he introduced me to some of the other volunteers and then the carers, and I realised that I had a good story to tell and I had access, and yeah, the rest is history.
How long did it take you to get those amazing, at the very end, those amazing shots of the bats sort of skimming the surface of the water? How long did it take you? Were you sitting there to get those?
Well, in total, it was 4 weeks for the whole documentary. It was a bit rushed. It was my grad project for uni, and I had another project lined up that got cancelled because of COVID. But anyway, yeah, it was about 2 weeks' worth of going out twice or 3 times a week, filming and getting a lot of out-of-focus shots.
Yeah. So Maria, your film, very, very compelling, moving human story, but also very striking in its visual presentation, the animation. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you found why did you decide to go with animation, to take that approach? How did you find the animator who worked with you on the film?
Yeah, thanks. So this project is the pilot of a series on climate refugees. So this is the first story I'm doing out of hopefully 12 and maybe more. So now we're developing it with some support from the Redford Center and the media program. But the way I found the girl was through a friend of mine who's Brazilian, Lucas, who was doing research for the BBC at the time on the on the Zika pandemic in Brazil. And I thought it's such an interesting, touching personal story of somebody whose life just changes because of climate. And I didn't think a lot of people also knew that there's this connection between climate and the Zika and mosquitoes and all of that. So I used animation in a way not just to retell what happened in terms of facts, but also I tried to use it in this way where I would show how she felt at the time when she had to make these tough decisions she had to make.
Have you been in touch with her recently? Do you know how she and her baby are doing? Yeah,
so we were in touch. Unfortunately, the baby passed away, Victoria, because with this disease, they don't normally live longer than 10 years the most. And we really wanted to reconnect with her, to go out and speak to other women and to communities in Brazil and present this story together with her, because we thought that, it's something that a lot of locals also are not aware of, and there were some NGOs that we planned to work with as well. So yeah, we're still in touch.
Thoughts are with her. Bree, your film, I think, if you're not a filmmaker and you sit and watch these films, they all come together so well on the screen. They all come across as, very coherent narratives. But of course, the art of filmmaking is incredibly difficult. Can you talk to us about some of the biggest challenges you faced making this film and how you overcame them?
Yeah, sure thing. Once again, this was my first proper doco that I'd made. And going into the shoot, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, I'm just going to obdoc this and I'll work it out later. So I think the biggest challenge was the months in post-production trying to find a narrative. Yeah.
And have you been in touch with the group of foresters who you chronicled in the film and what they're next?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Jen Sanger and Steve Pearce, who run the tree projects, are good friends of mine, and they've just recently did another survey in another logging coop to find out, what habitat, what animals are living there, and what who are in danger, if that forest was to be logged. So yeah, they're constantly working in that space. And they do photography, I just little spruik these guys. Check out the tree projects. They do amazing photography of these trees. So yeah, they try and engage community and in this kind of concept through art and through community engagement and things like that. So they're doing really awesome work.
Well, we are out of time. Thank you all once again. And can we please another round of applause for our fantastic finalists?